we can ponder whether we want that at the small town feel to be a little bit more congested than maybe we would like. And some of us chose to live in a small town rather than a big town. And so that's possibly something that we can consider. Also, I just wanted to say thank you for the time that you take to listen and to care about what your constituents feel and to consider more than just the developers of but it's important to listen to all, but we appreciate that. And that's what I have to say. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, we're on to item number 3. We have a swearing in of a new police officer. Super exciting. I'll turn the time over to, yeah. Are you going to do it? Okay.
It's not my strong suit. And hopefully we don't have to do this a lot.
Right, because we want our new officers to stay.
Yes.
So that's why.
So tonight we'll be swearing in Chris Ransom. And Chris is coming to us. We stole him from Salt Lake County.
Good for us. Good job.
And 6.5 years on. He just completed the law enforcement portion of the police academy. He's been in training for 3 weeks. For 3 weeks now. And after we swear him in, I'll let, if he wants to tell you how his night went last night, I'll let him.
Okay.
Mindy will swear
Okay.
in, and his wife, Katie, will pin on his badge.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
This is the first for both of us, so I'm a little nervous too. Let's hope we get this right. So, there we go. So I state your name,
I, Christopher Ransom,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to support and defend
to support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
to perform my duties
perform my duties
as a police officer
as a police officer
for Kaysville City
for Kaysville City,
faithfully,
faithfully,
with honesty,
with honesty,
integrity,
integrity,
and fidelity. Congratulations.
Let's let her pin him, and then we'll do a group picture. Thanks, Mindy.
You gotta draw blood.
Yeah. Hit him hard.
I want to hear about your night.
Awesome.
Unless you don't want to.
Feel free. Do you have a little story to share? No?
Did he
No.
go the wrong way down the road?
Yeah.
he may, while backing up, bumped into something.
Oh, okay. Awesome. That's great. Okay, guys, let's get a picture.
You haven't looked at your car yet, have you?
Yeah.
You guys need me to like organize you a little bit? All right. Okay, right? Let's put your brothers in below, right here, and then we'll put the same. All right, come on up. Oh, there we go. All right. Oh, all right. Here you guys. 3, 2, 1.
Congratulations and welcome. We're excited to have you. All right. Now we have a great award that we're really excited about as well. I'm going to turn the time over to Dean Story. Employee of the Quarter was awarded to Cheryl Wright. And wait. Did I read that wrong? And we're so excited to have you here. So, what did I say right? I don't know.
Mayor and Council, we're honored to be here tonight to recognize one of the finest in the Administration and Finance Department, Cheryl Wade. She has worked with the city for about 14 years. She is our cash receiving clerk, front office counter, so any interaction with the public, she really is the first one to work with the public, to answer phone calls, to help others, and so we're really grateful to have Cheryl in the administration department. She really is our secret weapon.
Mm-hmm.
She's always willing to take on new projects. If there's a lunch with the mayor or any other events, she's always willing to step up and help, and we're really grateful for that. Additionally, she is the private investigator for Kaysville City.
Right.
If you ever need to know any dirt on anyone,
She's really good.
Cheryl's the person to find it. We tried to find some dirt on our new city manager. We looked for weeks and couldn't find anything.
Squeaky.
Yeah, squeaky.
But anyway, we're happy to recognize Cheryl and her great efforts for the city. And we want to present her a check for $100.
Oh, nice. Nice.
That's your massage.
Yeah. Awesome.
And also a certificate of the employee.
Awesome. Great. Get a picture with it. We want to get a picture with you.
Can I get a picture with you, Cheryl? No running off?
You should have heard her trying to tell me she wasn't coming Thursday night.
Yeah, I believe it.
She said we're never speaking of it again.
Photoshop 20 pounds off.
Congratulations. I will echo all of the wonderful things Dean said. You are so great to jump in, and you help me with all kinds of random things and just make the city run well. So we've got great employees. Okay, the next presentation is from the Freedom Light Foundation, and I'll turn the time over to Delane England for this.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I don't know if you are aware, this year, our Representative Stratton was the sponsor of Bill HB 179 to make the month of September American Founders and Constitution Month. So September is American Founders and Constitution Month. So of course I'm super excited about it because I'm a history teacher, and we go to Independence Day celebrations, and I just felt really frustrated 16 years ago that we don't really have anything to celebrate the Constitution, which is also amazing. And so we decided to create this Freedom Light Foundation, the festival, which is a way to celebrate and to learn about the Constitution. So because of the bill that Representative Stratton sponsored, the governor and I passed his letter out to you, asking cities and schools to learn, to do something through the month of September to learn about the Constitution. So I am here to let you know that we exist and that you can use us as your event or one of your events. What we do is we try to recreate colonial America. It's at Bountiful Park. It's outside. We have lots and lots of tents. We have 45 different activities that everyone can do. So you're able to come to our event and you get to meet many of the founding fathers. George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, the ones you know, but you also get to meet some of them that you have probably never heard of, but did amazing things. Ordinary people, but did amazing things. Plus, you also get to meet many of the founding mothers. Again, they did amazing things, and it's fun to hear their stories first person, and you hear from them what they actually did and how they benefited our country and how they helped to win the Revolutionary War. We also have activities and games so that you can learn the principles of the Constitution. I know as a teacher, I can sit my students down and I can explain it to them while they're sitting at the desk, and they might be listening and they probably aren't. But when we get up and do activities and we help them actually have hands-on and experiential, they not only get it, they understand it, and they retain it so much better. So you have lots of activities that are fun and engaging to help everybody learn about the principles and to learn the amazing genius of our Constitution. We also have artisans. So we have like the printing press, exact replica that Isaiah Thomas, the founding father and signer, that he used to print the Declaration and many of the other founding documents and many articles. So everyone gets to actually use it. You get to put the ink on it, put the paper on it. You can do a wanted poster of yourself if you want to. You can turn yourself into a Tory. And then you get to print the paper and use it. You get to make a candle at the chandlery. You get to make something at the blacksmith. You get to see how a cooper makes a bucket out of wood with no nails that doesn't leak. So we have lots of different artisans as well. We also have Ellis Island. So you get to go through the immigration process of Ellis Island, just what it was like. You get to take 1/10 of the actual test that you take to become a citizen, and then you get to take the oath of citizenship. And so we have music, there's food, there's just lots of different activities. And so we just wanted you to know about it and know you're invited. And we would love to have anybody who is interested is very welcome to participate in any way. So we would love to have you put it on your newsletter, on your marquee. We have signs that you could put up in any way that we could assist you in celebrating the Constitution. We would love to. Thank you so much. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. This is
Thank
great.
you.
Thanks for coming and sharing
Thank
this
you.
with
I
us.
really appreciate it. Thank you.
Is John Adams there?
John Adams and Abigail Adams are definitely there. Yes.
Well, you should know that, but anyway. Okay, thank you so much. The next presentation is by the Library Endowment and Ellen Peterson.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to come. So I'm Ellen Peterson. I'm from the Davis County Library. And there is an endowment fund specifically for our Kaysville Library that you guys are the endowment board for, and it's the Allen and Kay Blood Endowment Fund. And last year, you guys graciously allowed us to use $20,000 of that fund to enhance our Kaysville Library. And did you guys all get the handout? Okay, so I just am here to briefly go over how we spent that money. So it was $20,000, and the majority of it we went towards children's materials, as that is what is used the most in our library system, and we feel like we have a strong presence of children in Kaysville, and so those funds go directly to that. We also included e-audio as formats continue to change. Electronic formats are becoming more and more popular, and this helped us get a few more titles for our e-audio collection as well. And so we got a total of 1,740 titles with that $20,000, and we were just really grateful for that opportunity to do so. And does anyone have questions about it?
Questions?
Thank you.
Oh,
Can I
go
just
ahead,
say thank
Councilmember
you
Jackson.
for upping the amount for the e-audio books,
Yes.
because that's the only way I can find time to read these days. So.
I understand, and we continue to find ways to do that. So, thank
That's
you.
great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, council, conflicts of interest. Does anyone have anything to declare?
No, but do these guys know that they don't need to stay?
Who?
The officer's wife?
Oh, you don't have to stay unless you'd like to, but you are welcome to. Okay, you are welcome to be here. Thank you.
Enjoy it, probably.
Yeah, we're so entertaining. We're selling ourselves short here. Okay. So no conflicts of interest. All right. Does someone want to make a motion on the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion that we approve consent items A through H.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Comments? Nope. Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. Councilmember Blackham.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, it takes us to action item 6. An ordinance amending section 17-24 farm animals of the Kaysville City Code to allow chickens, ducks, and similar animals in the R16 zone and on twin home parcels. Turn the time over to Melinda for this.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. We received an application several weeks ago from a resident who was interested in having, excuse me, ducks, chickens on her property, and we regrettably had to let her know that her property was not large enough in size per our code to have those types of animals. So she submitted an application to have that code changed. What we did when that application came in was we reviewed the materials. Our zoning administrator, Dan Jessup, took some time to do some research and verified the information that the Lorchesters had submitted, and but also felt like there was an approach that would have been simpler for our code to allow those types of those types of animals on the property. So what she had submitted is included in the packet. She had looked at some other cities who use a point system to allow animals on properties. And so is essentially, you would be assigned at the side of the property a certain amount of points. Mm-hmm. And you could use up all those points with goats, you could use all them up with chickens, or you could have a goat, a chicken, a horse, and they all had a different point value. Dan felt like this was a little bit confusing, and so he met with the applicants and proposed an approach that would still meet her goals, but be simpler, and then also really just the same lines of how our ordinance is currently drafted. So what's before you this evening is there's really three main components to the ordinance that's being changed. This is only applicable to fowl, rabbits, and animals of similar sizes. Right now, the minimum square footage required to have any of those animals is 8,000 square feet. So this would reduce that to 4,000, which would mean that somebody in a twin home would be able to have animals on their property. Also, somebody that would be in the R16 zone. We have just a couple of properties in the city that are zoned R16. It would allow them to have animals as well. And the Planning Commission also felt like it would be more straightforward to have an across-the-board allowance for how much square footage each animal needed to have. And so really the two main changes in the ordinance then is the reduction of the lot size to 4,000 square feet and the reduction of the square footage. I think some was 700. I think there was some that were 800, but it's just 500 across the board. So this was before the Planning Commission on June 22nd. They held a public hearing. There was one individual that came and commented. They would like to have an allowance made to have additional animals if they were pygmy size. The Planning Commission voted 7-0 to send a recommendation of approval, and staff is recommending that. We do have the applicant here this evening for any questions you may have, or if there's any comments that Marissa would like to add to this.
Okay, thank you for that report, and I appreciate all of the work that went into this. Very well done there. We don't have anyone signed up to speak, so Marissa, would you like to say anything? No? You feel good about it? Okay. You guys are good? Yeah, all right. Okay. Council, what do you think? Do you have any questions? Councilmember Jackson?
I have a comment. Yeah, so I noticed that this first came to the city around Easter time. I was a little bit suspect because a lot of people get ducks and bunnies at that time of year. But when I read further on down, the purpose is you want to rescue some domestic ducks that have been put into the pond. And I think that's pretty commendable. And so I appreciate all the work that the city has done on this effort. It was very detailed. And I just applaud the city for the work they've done and for you coming to the city with that creative offer. So,
thank you, Councilmember Jackson. Councilmember Adams.
Maybe I couldn't find it in here, and maybe I got lazy, but the how does an HOA conflict? I mean, I know that our HOA doesn't let, which I regret, I wish they did, let chickens, because I think it'd be awesome to have fresh eggs. And then there's also some restrictions. My second question is about roosters. Like, I know chickens to lay eggs don't need roosters, but I know that some neighbors wouldn't like to have roosters, and that could be.
We don't allow them.
Huh?
We don't allow roosters.
We don't allow roosters.
No.
That's what I thought, but.
They're not
but-
allowed in the residential
But
zones.
what's the HOA answer to the HOA question?
That's a private property agreement between
So this
property
doesn't
owners.
take precedent over, so it doesn't.
It would not. So if within an HOA, a neighbor got one, it wasn't allowed, it would be upon the two of them to sort that out. So essentially, the city doesn't get involved in HOA
Disputes
HOA
and-
regulations.
Right.
Awesome. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Oaks.
Yeah, hats off to Dan, the work that he did in putting together. I mean, it makes me nervous because my wife wants chickens and they would be allowed, and I keep saying no. So, I want to vote no, just because I don't want any. But my other comment was, does this make all of Councilmember Adams' pets legal now?
Yeah. All 17 of them.
Right. Okay, Councilmember Hunt.
I just wanted to, I know it's been said, but I just want to say thank you to you guys for coming with this. Your plan was really detailed. Like, there was so much research, and when I asked questions, you had great answers. So I appreciate all the work you put in. I think, sometimes running a city takes a lot of people, and especially when people are willing to help, I think that's really good. And obviously staff has made it work for us, but thanks so much for everything you put into it.
Thank you very much. And I will give you a shout out. I was reading through the staff report and all the notes, and your questions back to Marissa were so good, Abby. So anyway, thanks for taking the time to really dig into that. Okay, anything else? Nope. All right, we ready for a vote?
A motion.
Or a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve action item A, an ordinance amending section 17-24 farm animals of the Kaysville City Code to allow chickens, ducks, and similar animals in the R16 zone and on twin home parcels.
Thank you very much. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments? Nope. Okay, Councilmember Adams.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion passes. Good luck, guys. Thank you. Yay! I think you should stand up and show your shirt. Will you share that with us? Duck Dad. See? Isn't that great? They are all in. Thanks, guys. All right. Okay, let's move on to B, an ordinance amending 17-33 sign regulations of the Kaysville City Code to make minor changes to the language and to restrict heights of signs along the West Davis corridor. I'll turn the time over to Melinda.
Thank you again. So this this text amendment is before us really at the request of both the Planning Commission and the City Council. This has been a topic that has been discussed since earlier this year. And when it first came up with the Planning Commission, they asked staff to go back and do some research, figure out what best practices are for protecting scenic corridors or scenic byways. And the short answer is that we were not able to find any information on that. The APA, the American Planning Association, the Utah chapter, has a listserv where you can send out an email requesting information. I did that, didn't receive any comments back from anyone. Once again, Dan Jessup and actually Mindy did quite a bit of work on this. But we looked at what all of the scenic byways were within the state, and then we pulled a bunch of the cities that were near, towns or cities that were near those scenic byways. I think Dan personally called over 20 different entities, and we just really didn't find any information on best practices. So that being said, with a number of things. Staff brought forward to the Planning Commission some not only housekeeping changes to the ordinance, but a provision to limit sign heights on the west side of West Davis Corridor, which would be that scenic view that you would like to protect. So the scenic view we would consider to be the Great Salt Lake. And then the recommendation from staff and then ultimately the Planning Commission too was to leave the existing allowed sign height at 30 feet. So there was also some additional changes within the ordinance. There were a couple of items that were listed as conditional uses, and we were recommending that those be moved to permitted uses. So this again was before the Planning Commission on June 22nd. They did recommend approval with a vote of 7-0. And this time around, there were no public comments that were received, but I didn't want to be disingenuous to the process and the comments that had taken place earlier this year. So I believe I did include all of those in the packet. So we're recommending approval as presented, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. I was looking for, so really, just for clarification for people that might be watching or listening, the only change would be to the scenic byway.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So
And it would be an 8-foot maximum height.
correct. Yeah, and only
So-
on the west side,
On
so
the
the
west
lake
side.
side of the
The lake
scenic
side of
byway
it.
would any property, any zone would be limited to a sign height of 8 feet.
Okay, on the left side. So if there's a property on the east side, it could be 30 feet high.
Correct.
According, and this doesn't affect anything else within the city? No other signs would have to be changed? Okay, just for
No.
clarification, I know that we had some interest in that. Okay. Anyone have any questions or comments? Councilmember Hunt.
I think it's also important to note that most of the properties on the east side, with the exception of very few, are all residential. So most of those aren't going to be applying for signs. I don't know. I mean, it's a very small area that we're really taking into consideration.
Okay. Councilmember Jackson.
Does Councilmember Adams have a question? 'Cause
No,
I'm
no
still,
question.
okay. Just don't want to cut you off if you're ready.
Yeah.
So, yeah, reading through the notes, it was mentioned that there's not really a precedent for scenic byways. And I was interested in, if this is classified as a scenic byway, why it would only be a scenic byway on one side of the road versus both sides. And then, is that UDOT? And I read through all the notes, but I was a little, I didn't fully understand. Is it UDOT that's designating that as a scenic byway? And then at what point does it not become a scenic byway? Just the moment you get off the UDOT property? Could you kind of answer those two?
So the scenic
questions?
byways are designated by UDOT. It's also a federal highways designation, but they leave that up to the individual state. So, I mean, to answer your question, I think the scenic byway itself is, I mean, they don't designate one side versus another, but if you look at it from a practical standpoint, there's a view shed that you're trying to protect. And the scenic byway really, so Legacy is a scenic byway, and I believe actually that was a designation that came out of all of the environmental lawsuits when Legacy was being planned. So the byway is being continued north on the West Davis corridor. So I think the byway would end the moment you exit either Legacy or West Davis corridor.
Okay, that's helpful, okay.
All right, anybody else?
I think the hardest part,
Councilmember
oh,
Adams.
sorry.
You may speak.
You may now speak. I mean, when we had the public meeting, a lot of the neighbors that, I think just basically the reason for this whole thing is the come and go gas station that's going to ask probably for a 20, or they have in their drawings a 25-foot sign at the exit. And my comment at that point in time, when the neighbors were here, was that I probably would not like to have a 25-foot sign that was lighted right next to my home. And I felt like my interpretation of that meeting was that we ended it saying that we were going to restrict it to 8 feet. And I've re-listened to it, and I could see how it could be interpreted not that way, but I felt very strongly that they left that meeting thinking that. Because when the meeting ended, they came up and said, "Thank you so much for keeping the sign height down."
They meaning the residents?
The
in
residents,
the neighborhood?
yeah,
Okay.
of that neighborhood. And so it's hard for me to vote in favor of this because I felt like that meeting we said that, and then it was sort of backtracked. I think the history is that we thought that it was going to be in place, and then we checked with the ombudsman, and they said, no, it's actually not in place until they've...
There was a question on the timing of their application.
That's right. So whether or not they were granted a 10-year, oh, no, what's the word? Vesting, whether they were vested. And so that's my opinion. I don't know how the rest of council feels, but I feel like the way that we represented it in that meeting would come across to most people that we were saying, yeah, we're only going to have 8-foot signs, even on the east side of the byway. And so I feel like it would be inappropriate to now allow 30-foot signs. That's my opinion.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Blackham, did you have something?
I'm just probably a little bit opposite from John, just because I realize I could put a 35-foot building there, and I could put 25% of the wall of that building and sign on each side of the wall. And so, I want to help commercial businesses succeed in Kaysville, and I've always felt like there was going to be that was zoned commercial probably 20 years ago, and I knew there was going to be commercial, especially with the West Davis corridor going down there. And I know that it takes a sign for some of these businesses to be able to advertise that we have a sale on this, we have a sale on that. And I'm a little bit worried that if it was only an 8-foot tall sign, if there was a truck to the side of me, it's a 2-lane highway going down and 2-lane highway coming up, I wouldn't even be able to see the sign over the car next to me. Or I may get distracted trying to read that sign in that car next to me or whatever. And I know we're going to have the same issue when we have this new interchange over here at the bottom of 950 North and Shepherd Lane, basically. For me to think that somebody's not going to propose a convenience store gas station down there would be somewhat naive, I think, because realistically, freeway entrances are the best place to have gas stations, convenience stores, and those things that provide services for people who go on and off the freeway. And, I want to see a business come in. I want to help a business succeed. And when I realized I could put a 35-foot tall sign on the building, if the building's 35, because that commercial zone allows for 35-foot buildings, and a wall sign allows you to have 25% of that wall in sign if you want to. And it's a permitted use, I believe. So this is not, I think it's a little better the fact that it's out on the street and not at the building. And I think they do need to be able to advertise their gas prices. I think people need to be able to see above the car next to them what the gas prices are and things. And I don't know of any, I really don't know of any gas stations in the area that don't have a sign where they can actually advertise what they have for sale or what they're doing. And so since it's a commercial zone, and I know those people don't like the commercial going next to them, but nobody ever really does. But there are services that do need to be provided. And that property has been zoned commercially for a long time. And I have a hard time thinking that that's not the type of commercial that was going to go there.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Councilmember Oaks.
Yeah, I probably in the same viewpoint as Councilmember Blackham. And John, I remember the meeting we had, and I remember the discussion of 8-foot signs, and I remember thinking, that's wrong. I hope they don't walk away with that idea. because I want to be driving down West Davis corridor, and if I need gas, to be able to look and see something potentially that, okay, there's something here, I can get off and get it. And I think that's good for the commercial business. I want, if I'm going down 200 North, if I don't know it's there, now realistically I will know it's there, but not always. But to swing over the last minute because, shoot, I don't see it coming up. I was reading through the notes, and that was one of the things that really hit me was the safety factor, be able to see coming and going. Sorry. And as I drive home, I go down Main Street, and we got the gas station right there. You know, the awning's at 20 feet or 20 couple feet, and the sign there, you don't really notice it after a while. In fact, I can drive by it now after living here for a number of years and miss it and say, shoot, I need a gas there. And the sign's still the same height. I don't see it blocking any scenic byway unless I was at that road that was going to turn on 200 North, you know, because it's not a sight line for homes, realistically, that are there. And I think this is good for the city. So.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Jackson?
Yeah, I have another question and then kind of another statement based on that. You know, it's hard because reading both sides, I made commitments to the people in the neighborhood as well. And it has been zoned commercial for a long time. But I also feel like there were probably some mistakes made a long time ago, maybe decades ago in the city to some degree about how it was zoned. But looking at the scenic byway, I mean, when you drive up Legacy, there's really no signs. The only one I can think of, and I think this was in the notes, was the Maverick sign, and that's pretty close to I-15 as well. And I think the counter argument from the residents was actually pretty good on that. And then as far as like this being a principal arterial street, I was a little bit confused about that and about the history. I believe the West Davis corridor will be State Route 177, but the historical state route was 67, and that was a primary street. So I would like more clarification on that. I didn't fully understand in the notes. But going back, you know, I think along I-15, it's important to have tall signs because the majority of people that drive past are not only residents, but you have a lot of people who are from out of town and whatnot that need to see where gas stations are and public services. But this highway will probably be mostly used by residents, and over time, everyone will know a gas station is there. And to me, a scenic highway, I like to have the view of the mountains as much as I like the view of the wetlands and the Great Salt Lake. And so I'm inclined to, you know, stick with my position with the residents and with Councilmember Adams, but I would like you to explain that if you could a little bit for clarification.
Sure. So let me take you back to about a year ago. The engineer who was working for Come and Go at the time is based out of Denver, and she called and said, hey, can you help confirm something for me? And she said, I'd been looking at your sign code, and it appears that we would only be allowed to do an 8-foot tall sign. Mr. Jessup and I looked at that, we confirmed that, and it was at that point where they determined they wanted to put in a text amendment application to get the sign height increased. So this ended up then on an agenda back in January with the Planning Commission. And at that point in time, the question came up as to whether or not the West Davis corridor was a scenic byway. And at that time, we didn't know. So over the course of the next couple weeks, I did some additional research, but to give a very, try to give a straightforward answer to a very convoluted question, our code, chapter 8, defines what our arterial streets are. And then our sign code is based off of proximity. So the sign height that is allowed is based on the proximity to these roads. State Route 273 does not go through our community. And so looking at that, and I've confirmed this with UDOT, But Legacy is State Route 273. Up until probably about 4 or 5 years ago, when they started the design phase on the West Davis corridor, they were using the same numbering for Legacy. And so they have now, because Legacy is not going to be, or West Davis corridor isn't going to be a continuation of Legacy, it's a connection into. And so they've changed that number, and it will be listed as State Route 177. The convoluted part is that in state code, it makes, and case law makes it very clear that if there is an error in code or code that is unclear or ambiguous, that you err on the side of the applicant. So that said, the only justified or reasonable explanation to have State Route 273 in our code is because it was meant to be the numbering for the West Davis corridor. And so that led us back to then the allowed height would be 30 feet. And then to just give a little bit more context to, we again did some additional research, and there's a variety of reasons why staff felt the justification to leave that at 30 feet, including, as was mentioned, commercial building heights are allowed up to 35 feet, houses 30 feet. The grade of the corridor over there will be about 25 feet above grade. And so, it's reasonable to think that if you have a shorter sign, you would not see that. You wouldn't see the fuel prices. You wouldn't see the advertisement of diesel fuel that would be available. And then additionally, just lost my train of thought. The part of the scenic byway designation is UDOT does not allow the logo, the blue logo signs. When you're driving down the I-15 and it has the logo signs that show your hotel, your lodging, your restaurants. And so those are not allowed on scenic byways. And so given the collective information, that we gathered after the discussions that were had at Planning Commission and with City Council, we felt it was reasonable to leave that as 30 feet. And of course, at the end, this is the council's prerogative to make a change or to not, but to maintain also the integrity of the way land use is supposed to work with text amendments and the Planning Commission, it really wouldn't be appropriate for the council to give a directive to the Planning Commission as to an outcome. And so we felt like, giving them the information, presenting that to the Planning Commission, they give their recommendation to you, was the path forward after the meeting. So again, that's the background on that, but it's the prerogative of the council to make whatever decision this evening you feel like is appropriate.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilmember Hunt, do you have any comments or thoughts?
I guess I just have a few thoughts. That was a tough meeting when we all came out feeling, depending on who you are. I also felt like we had said, we wanted to try for 8 feet. I think, though, in the end, because we're talking about preserving view sheds, like Melinda or Ms. Greenwood said, it's not going to be any or much taller than the grade of the actual overpass. So by forcing it to be smaller, we're not preserving a view shed. And if that's what we're trying to do with a view shed preservation thing, then there's really no point in adding that in because it's kind of already there. Yeah, I think that's mostly where I'm at on it.
Okay. I was just going to add a couple thoughts. Obviously, I don't get to vote on this, but the hard thing about this was that, like Councilmember Blackham mentioned, this property was zoned commercial for 20 plus years, before the school was built, before the neighborhood was built. And it was always the intention of the city to have a gas station there because we knew that road would eventually go in. The frustration kind of came, or the complication came when UDOT was limiting access from 200 North versus the neighborhood. Now, that issue is a separate issue. So I guess I wanted to circle back to the facts. The facts are, it's an allowable use to have a gas station on that corner. And gas stations traditionally have signs that advertise what they're selling. And so the fact that it's allowed already, and we were trying as much as we could to work with the developer to make some concessions that would make the residents happy. You know, they made some great concessions. The residents were not completely satisfied for sure, because they really didn't want the gas station to be there at all. So that being said, I can see how the neighbors maybe left the meeting feeling like, okay, the city's going to do everything that we can for them, and that is the intention, and we did try to do that, and we went back to the property owner and said, hey, would you consider this? And they said, well, we would consider it, but again, the grade is 25 feet tall just to get onto the road, so you won't be able to, it'll be like a monument sign in the grass, basically, comparatively. You won't be able to see it. And so they weren't willing to redact that or to remove that. They still wanted their 25-foot sign. So that being said, I think that we have done our due diligence as a city. I would be an advocate for the fact that we did go back to the property owner. We did everything we could to advocate. We had many meetings between the parties, and we did everything that we could as a city without forcing the applicant to change their application, because we can't do that. So because we have gas stations throughout the city and they have signs, I think it seems unfair to limit the one in this particular location because of some of the frustration. So that's all I have to say, and I'm now ready to entertain a motion if someone would like to make one.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve an ordinance amending 17-33 sign regulations of the Kaysville City Code to make minor changes to the language and restrict heights of signs along the West Davis corridor.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments? Nope. Okay, I'll call for a vote. Council. Yes, absolutely.
So my only comment will be that my understanding of the meeting was such that we recommended to the Planning Commission that they do 8-foot signs, and then at the end of the meeting, it was suggested that it didn't matter because the applicant had already submitted their plans and were vested. And then my comment to the attorney was, to Nick, was, are they truly vested because they haven't actually submitted an application for the sign permit? And initially he thought that yes, they were vested, but then upon looking deeper into it, he found out that no, they weren't vested because they hadn't done a sign permit. And so I felt like we had said to these neighbors, hey, yeah, we're going to tell them to change it, but really it doesn't matter because whatever we have, even if they change it back to, even if they make it 8 feet, these guys are vested, so they'll get their sign. And then it was a scramble to change it and get it back. So I just want to make a comment. I still feel very strongly like we gave the impression to the neighbors that we were going to have it changed, and then when we found out that they weren't vested, we've changed it, in my humble opinion. Anyway, that's my comment.
Okay. Anyone else? No comments? Okay. Call for a vote. Councilmember Hunt.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Nay.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you, council. All right, moving on to councilmember reports. Does anyone have anything to report? Oh, Councilmember Oaks. Oh, Councilmember Hunt.
Hold on, I wrote it down.
Okay, Councilmember Oaks.
I'm involved with the ramp committee, and I'm excited to see, like, the Oaxaca, and I'll be on the road, so I won't be able to be here, but that we're doing something for the community. And this last week, my wife and I are watching our 4 grandkids, 7, 5, 2, and 7 months, and so I got a lot more gray hairs by the end of this week. But yesterday we went to the dinosaur walking park up in Ogden, and today we were at the Treehouse Museum. And in both places, they have these ramp signs that talk about, how ramp funds have gone in to help some of the exhibits at both places. And to be able to see that in places that my grandkids love and lots of folks go to, it just gets me that much more excited for what we'll see over the coming years with ramp investment in our city. And that's all.
That's fantastic. Thank you. That's a great program. Councilmember Hunt?
Okay, so it's been a few weeks because we haven't met for a while, but I was able to go on the Weber Basin watershed tour, and it was super cool because I went 2 years ago when there was nothing in the reservoirs, and it was really cool to go and see water in the reservoirs and water coming over the spillways, and it was very heartening to see. Flash forward, I had a meeting today with a Land, Water, and Air Board, and so, I mean, I guess it was cool to see, but, you know, there's still progress that needs to be made on our water conservation, so stay vigilant, but also be excited that we have water to drink and recreate on, and I guess that's my report. It was a cool thing.
All right, thank you. Anyone else?
Yes.
Yes, Councilmember Adams.
Just speaking of ramp, the Wilderness Park parking lot and trailhead project should be finished by the end of the month. If any of you have gone up there, yay! Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful. The funding provided for that was by ramp, or partially by ramp at least, and a Davis County grant, and then also a state of Utah grant. So when you park there, just be happy.
Thank you. Councilmember Blackham?
All I can talk about a little bit about the mosquito abatement district, because they go, and I'm telling you, they're trying. They're doing everything they can. I don't know why those things are still alive as much as we go after them, but so the mosquito abatement district just had their first West Nile virus that they got in one of their mosquito pools. So it's out there, it's early. And it's just the mosquito. They got it out of the mosquitoes, and no human cases yet, okay? But that usually comes a little after. But I don't know if y'all know, we are partners with Salt Lake, and we have a hangar up at the Ogden Airport, and we fly. You'll see airplanes flying out there all the time, but they're very actively go out all the time, and they mark out grids and places out there after they've gone and done research to see mosquitoes out there. Then they'll mark that out. They'll give them to the planes. The planes will go out and fly for it. And then I don't know if you've seen them in your neighborhoods. They're driving in your neighborhoods, and there's only certain times that they can do that when mosquitoes are flying. And so they do it more in the evenings. And but they've really been putting a push on it, and I'm sure you've all seen it. And they're really trying. I've never figured out an animal or something, a bug, that can completely freeze solid in the winter and be alive in the spring. I mean, it's crazy. It's been one of the most interesting things I've ever been around, to just watch them trying to kill mosquitoes.
Councilmember Blackham, I don't have any mosquitoes up here on the east side, and we've been putting lamb's blood on our front door every time we hear that truck coming. So maybe you should try that.
I guess. I don't know, but they're trying, and it's a big effort. It's a huge effort that they do throughout the county, and I can't even imagine what it would be like if they were not around here. So, give them a shout out what they do. I know it's miserable going out in the evenings. And if you do have special events or anything like that, you can get online or call them on the phone, and they will come by your neighborhood the day before. And so, take advantage of that. They're always willing to help out. And, a lot of times they don't know about some places that are really bad, and so let them know. Anyway.
Good to know. Thank you.
Mayor, can I have?
Yes, Councilmember Oaks.
I apologize. The fourth, it's been a couple weeks now, but I think, and Nate, you talked about the participants in the parade and all, but a shout out really needs to go to our Parks and Rec folks for everything they did to put on such an outstanding event, and then fire, police, and all the other members of the city who helped put that on, because it really was a first-class event. Yeah. So just wanted to say.
Hey, Mayor, what's the name of the guy? Say the name of the guy that is in charge of that, because that is
Chad Call.
Chad
Chad.
Call.
Of the parade?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Chad.
Chad Call. What,
He does an outstanding job.
what an amazing thing.
Trying to get him to come next year. He's
Yeah.
trying to retire.
Oh,
Yeah.
man, no, don't
He
let
does
that
such a
happen.
great job. It's so organized.
Yeah,
and
so, shout out to Chad
Yeah.
Call, because,
shout out to Chad for sure.
I don't want to do it. You do a great job.
And a shout out to the CERT team. In years past, we've had a couple volunteers, but I think we had 18 people show up, and they were so fantastic. They walked the parade route. They were over at the 4th of July doing parking and just helping us with everything. So we've got just great people in our city, and we're so lucky. I wanted to just mention First Fridays, which is a Main Street business sort of event. They'll have one more in August. And come out, they have some sidewalk sales and some people outside, and it's an opportunity to showcase the stores on Main Street. And then turn the rest of the time over to our city manager. Jason, do you have anything?
Yeah, just a couple of things, Mayor, Council. First, I would echo all the comments about the staff. We have such great staff, and congratulations to Cheryl for Employee of the Quarter. And I'm glad that she didn't do too much digging on me. If you go back to 2004, there's an article that I'm glad is very well buried.
Now we're going to have to find it.
Titled, 2000, well, nice, I think it's titled, City Shuts Down Kids Mistletoe Stand. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. It was a learning experience for me, so.
That sounds evil.
Seriously, a couple of things. We would like to meet, Melinda and or I, with each one of you over the coming week or two about the Phil Holland developments and some of the recommendations from the Planning Commission on that development. Before Phil goes back and spends any time or money on revising some of those plans, I think we'd like to get a sense of where the council members stand on some of those recommendations from the Planning Commission. So feel free to reach out to me. I'll reach out to you again, just to try to set up some times in the coming week or two. Also, the same thing with the Mutton Hollow annexation proposal or item and the Farmington boundary adjustment item. We're doing some financial analysis on both of those items to see what the cost would be or loss of potential revenue, things like that on both of those issues. And as soon as we have a little bit more information, we'll be reaching out to you to kind of get a sense of any concerns or questions you might have. And then once we are ready, we'll bring those items back for discussion to the board. And that's all I have.
Jason, thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
I think we all really will appreciate that financial analysis, because that's a big decision, and it will be good to have data. So thank you. All right. Anyone ready to make a motion to adjourn? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thanks, everybody, and thanks for being here. To our guests.
Like we weren't going to be here.
No.
The lawsuit against.
I'm going to do it sometime.
You know,